sick and nothing could be done for them, and they have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and all of a sudden they felt wonderful. Now, not everybody felt wonderful because there's varying degrees of sensitivities to gluten. But that was kind of the beginning of really, really understanding food in its relationship to Hashimoto's. Now, if you've been watching this series, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune problem. It's primarily an autoimmune problem. So, and 70% of your immune system is on the inside of your intestines. So, good answer. Good question, I would say, to answer. So it goes beyond gluten. I have friends in the field, colleagues in the field, and they do what our second evolution of food that was bad for Hashimoto's was back then. And that was, we would just write on a piece of paper, gluten, casein, soy, corn, and eggs, and we would hand it to the patient and say, don't eat those for the next 3 months. That was an evolution. Those are considered high allergic foods that, and most of you probably know that. Those are some of the most high allergy foods that are out there. Another thing we used to do was we used to say, okay, here's a piece of paper, write down your 5 most favorite foods in the whole world. And they would write them down and hand them back to us, and maybe we would look at them and maybe we wouldn't. Turn around and hand it back and say, okay, don't eat those foods. Because the understanding was that your favorite foods are the foods you eat the most frequently, and that you had the most likely chance of developing food sensitivities to those. So what I'm trying to say is there's not one food. I have another colleague who's a fairly well-known neurologist in the field of neuroinflammology, and he does a lot of consulting on it. He just takes people off of gluten and milk products. That's not enough for a lot of you, for sure. So so there's not an exact answer to that. The answer is it's all about food allergies and food sensitivities and which ones are the ones for you. Okay, people do different diets. They do the autoimmune paleo diet, but even the autoimmune paleo diet, there could be foods on there that you're going to be sensitive to. And so with those types of people, we do an allergy elimination diet, and you got to find out what people's food sensitivities are, and it varies from person to person. You might do the keto diet, and you know that might make you feel better because you're not eating a lot of vegetables, and the vegetables might be something where they bloat you up. If they bloat you up, it's because you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, probably. So you can't eat those foods because those foods will flare you up, and then that in turn will flare up your immune system, and that in turn will flare up your thyroid. If you have leaky gut, you might have sensitivity to a lot of foods. And so you have to fix that and not eat any of those foods because they flare up your thyroid. You have to fix the leaky gut. And if you're unfortunate enough to have mucosal intolerances, where I just read one that not 2 hours ago, a person who's wanting to be evaluated here. I mean, this person can't eat anything. Hasn't been able to eat anything since they were like 1979. And they're actually doing food transfusions, literally not food transfusions, but nutrient transfusions because they can't eat very many foods. That's severe oral mucosal intolerance. But what few foods, but she can't eat anything. Every time she eats one of those foods, it flares up a sensitivity, which in turn will flare up and her Hashimoto's, which I happen to think that she has based on reading her history and her assessment forms. So it's about what foods are you allergic to and what foods are you sensitive to. It's not about the lectins. It might be for certain people because maybe their food sensitivity is lectins, you know. It's not particularly exactly about the nightshades, but it might be for some people because they might be sensitive to the nightshades. I had somebody in here the other day that went through thought he was telling me something new. He said, I'm allergic to broccoli and asparagus. Can you believe that? No, and I want to go, well, yeah, because I've only heard it like 500 times. You know, so that's really the essence of of what foods do you, it's more about what foods do you not eat for Hashimoto's. And it's really differs for everybody. And you'll hear me say this every time I talk about the subject. It's the hardest thing to figure out, because food allergies are easy. You eat the food, all of a sudden your heart's palpitating, you get a rash, or you get brain fog, your head's ready to explode. That set off your Hashimoto's. But food sensitivities, they are different. They might not, you might eat the broccoli on a Tuesday at 5 o'clock and it might not cause your brain to blow up or your heart to start palpitating until Thursday night or Friday morning. So that's what we craft a lot of the initial aspects of our program on, because the reason I like that question is it's almost like until you figure out, you can kind of get the idea of how complex this could be. Until you figure out your food sensitivities and allergies, it's hard to get anything else to work on that person until they're fine. We have some new programs where basically they're baseline programs. We're pretty much testing food sensitivities, nutrient deficiencies, and toxicities, because they are the core, they are a big core in creating massive inflammatory responses. But just to confuse the matter more, if you have SIBO, good luck. You're gonna get on that diet and with those, and you're gonna blow up. Or if you have those oral tolerances, you're gonna get on one of those diets and you're gonna blow up. So it's a little complex, so I'm telling you all that because I know almost everybody comes in here today versus many moons ago when I did this. Everybody's on a diet. I have one today. I just looked at another one. I looked at a couple of people who called in and want to be evaluated. And I had to laugh. It says, do you want help with your diet? And it said, no, because this person thinks that they have the perfect diet. And they're eating a great diet. But I guarantee you that several of the foods they're eating is flaring up their thyroid problems. So I kind of laughed, and they always are like, yeah, I'll do it, if it feels like something we need to do. So yeah, food sensitivities, food allergies, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, oral intolerances. These are the things that will dictate what foods you should and should not eat. Is there a food to eat for Hashimoto's? No. No, there's no good foods to eat for Hashimoto's. There's a lot of good foods to not eat because you have Hashimoto's. So I think that answers it maybe a little bit more thoroughly than you wanted it, but it's really an important subject. I cannot even begin to stress how important and how paramount that is to the hierarchy of how you attack an immune response against Hashimoto's. So see you tomorrow with another hopefully interesting tidbit on Hashimoto's.